Michael Tanner sat at his kitchen table, sipping his coffee, as the soft hum of suburban life floated through the window. His wife, Emily, leaned against the counter, scrolling through her phone, a faint smile playing on her lips. She'd been distracted lately, her laughter at his jokes feeling rehearsed, her attention drifting like a leaf in the wind. Michael tried to dismiss it. Work had been stressful for her, managing deadlines and a demanding boss. Yet, a nagging feeling had started to creep into his mind, a whisper that he couldn't quite silence. "Car trouble again?" he asked, noticing her phone screen, an email from Miller's Auto Repair, the local car service. "Yeah," Emily replied, too quickly. She locked her phone and busied herself with the coffee maker. "Just routine maintenance. You know how it is." Michael frowned. "I thought we had that done last month." Emily shrugged. "It's making a weird noise again. Better safe than sorry, right?" He nodded but filed the odd exchange away in his mind. A week later, Emily came home late, her cheeks flushed and her smile unusually bright. She placed her keys on the counter and kissed Michael on the cheek. "Sorry I'm late. The car took longer than I thought," she said, her tone a little too light, too rehearsed. Michael raised an eyebrow. "Miller's Auto Repair again?" "Yeah. They're thorough, I'll give them that," Emily replied, brushing past him into the living room. That night, as she showered, Michael noticed her phone vibrating on the coffee table. A text message popped up. "Can't wait to see you again. Ryan." His heart stopped. The screen locked before he could read more, leaving him staring at his reflection in the black void of the screen. Michael didn't mention the text. He told himself there could be a simple explanation, Ryan could be a coworker, a friend. But suspicion gnawed at him. The next day, he stopped by Miller's Auto Repair during his lunch break. The shop smelled of oil and rubber, its walls lined with tools and faded pin-up calendars. A young man in his mid-20s, with grease-streaked arms and a charming smirk, approached him. "Hey there, I'm Ryan. What can I do for you?" Michael froze. The name was like a bullet, hitting its mark. "Just wanted to check on the maintenance schedule for my wife's car," he said, his voice steady. Ryan leaned against the counter, wiping his hands on a rag. "Emily Tanner, right?" "Yeah, she was just here yesterday." "Great lady. Real sweetheart." The words stung more than they should have. Michael forced a smile. "She mentioned something about the brakes?" "Ah, yeah, we took care of that." "She's good to go," Ryan replied, his smirk lingering just a little too long. The tension at home grew thicker with each passing day. Emily was more secretive, her laughter forced, her excuses flimsy. Then, one morning, a package arrived at their doorstep. "Did you order something?" Emily asked, holding the plain brown box. "No," Michael replied, taking it from her. He opened it cautiously, his stomach nodding. Inside was a collection of photos. Emily and Ryan. Laughing in the garage. Sitting too close. Her hand brushing his arm. Michael's vision blurred with rage. Emily stood frozen, her face pale. "Michael." He held up a hand, silencing her. But it wasn't just photos. Tucked beneath them was a typed note. "Ryan isn't who you think he is. Watch your back." Michael stared at the words, his anger momentarily replaced by confusion. Was someone else involved? Was Ryan manipulating Emily, or was something darker at play? The story was unraveling, but Michael wasn't ready for the truth, yet. Michael didn't confront Emily immediately. The cryptic note unnerved him, and he needed more answers before making his move. That evening, as Emily chatted absent-mindedly about her day, he watched her closely. She avoided his eyes, her voice lacking its usual warmth. "Did you see Ryan today?" he asked casually, testing her reaction. Emily froze mid-sentence, her fork hovering above her plate. Ryan? Why would you ask that? Michael shrugged. Just curious. You've been spending a lot of time at the garage lately. Her face flushed, and she forced a laugh. It's just car stuff, Michael. Don't be ridiculous. But Michael wasn't convinced. The next day, Michael decided to follow Emily. She left the house claiming to have a meeting with a client, but instead of heading downtown, she drove toward Miller's Auto Repair. Parking a safe distance away, Michael watched as she stepped out of the car, her outfit more suited for a date than a routine errand. Ryan appeared from the garage, his smirk unmistakable. They exchanged a few words, then disappeared into the back office. Michael's chest tightened. His mind raced with possibilities. Were they just talking? Was it more? Unable to sit idly, Michael slipped into the garage, careful to avoid detection. As he approached the office door, he heard muffled voices. I can't keep lying to him, Ryan, Emily said, her voice trembling. Relax, Em, Ryan replied smoothly. You've got this under control. He doesn't suspect a thing. Michael clenched his fists, the betrayal cutting deep. As Michael stepped back to leave, a hand clamped on his shoulder. Startled, he turned to see a man in his late 50s, wearing a mechanic's uniform. You Michael Tanner? The man asked gruffly. Who's asking? Michael replied defensively. The man glanced toward the office and lowered his voice. I'm Joe. I've been working here for years, and I've seen Ryan pull this stunt before. He gets close to married women, uses them, then leaves them in the dust. You need to put a stop to this. Michael stared at him, unsure whether to believe him. Why are you telling me this? Joe sighed. Because I don't want to see another family torn apart. You seem like a good guy. Ryan's trouble, and your wife's just his latest target. That evening, Michael confronted Emily with Joe's words and the photos. Her face crumpled, tears streaming down her cheeks. It wasn't supposed to happen, she sobbed. I didn't mean for it to go this far. He made me feel special, Michael. Like I wasn't invisible. Michael's heart ached, torn between anger and pity. And what about us? What about me? Was I invisible to you? Emily reached for his hand, but he pulled away. I was stupid, she whispered. It was a mistake. Please, Michael. Don't let this destroy us. But Michael wasn't ready to forgive. Not yet. Michael decided to confront Ryan directly. The next day, he returned to the garage, his anger simmering just below the surface. Ryan greeted him with his trademark smirk, but it faltered when he saw the storm in Michael's eyes. You think you can mess with my wife and walk away? Michael growled, stepping closer. Ryan raised his hands defensively. Hey, man, it's not what you think. But Michael wasn't buying it. I know exactly what you've been doing. Joe told me everything. You're a parasite. Ryan's smirk returned, laced with arrogance. If your wife came to me, maybe you should ask yourself why. The words hit Michael like a slap, but instead of losing control, he smiled coldly. Michael had been working behind the scenes, gathering evidence and setting a trap. He hired a private investigator to dig into Ryan's past, uncovering a web of deceit and fraudulent activities. Armed with this information, Michael contacted the local authorities and arranged for a sting operation. 1 week later, Ryan was arrested at the garage, charged with fraud and embezzlement. As the police led him away, his cocky demeanor crumbled, replaced by fear and humiliation. Emily watched the scene unfold from the passenger seat of Michael's car, her face pale and tear-streaked. You planned this, she whispered. Michael didn't respond. The betrayal still burned, but he found a grim satisfaction in seeing Ryan's downfall. The reckoning. Michael's silence toward Emily grew louder each passing day. He wasn't ready to talk about forgiveness or revenge. While she pleaded for another chance, promising she would do whatever it took to mend their broken bond, Michael's mind churned with plans far beyond reconciliation. One evening, Emily tried to break through his wall of icy indifference. "Michael, I'll go to therapy. I'll quit my job if that's what it takes," she begged, her voice cracking. He looked at her, his expression unreadable. "We'll see," he replied flatly, leaving her to stew in her guilt. But Michael had already set the wheels of his revenge in motion. 2 weeks later, Emily came home to find the locks changed. Panicked, she pounded on the door until Michael opened it. His calm demeanor only made her more uneasy. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice trembling. Michael handed her a manila envelope. "Your things are in the garage. You're moving out." Emily's eyes widened as she opened the envelope. Inside were divorce papers, her name already signed on every dotted line. You're divorcing me?" she stammered. Michael's gaze was unflinching. "I can't trust you anymore, Emily. You broke something I don't think can ever be fixed." Emily collapsed onto the porch, tears streaming down her face. But her misery was only beginning. In the following days, Emily discovered the full extent of Michael's revenge. He had liquidated their joint savings account, leaving her with nothing but her personal belongings and a small monthly stipend per the divorce agreement. Worse, Michael had reached out to her employer, revealing the affair and the drama surrounding it. Emily was called into her boss's office and fired on the spot. Humiliated and broke, she was forced to move into a dingy apartment on the outskirts of town. She called Michael repeatedly, begging him to reconsider, but he never picked up. Her texts went unanswered. The man she had betrayed was now an immovable force, determined to make her suffer. Months later, Emily heard through mutual friends that Michael had started dating again. The woman, Jessica, was younger, successful, and, by all accounts, smitten with Michael. The news crushed Emily, who was still drowning in regret and despair. Desperate for closure, she showed up unannounced at Michael's office one day. "Please, Michael," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I need you to know how sorry I am." Michael leaned back in his chair, studying her with a detached expression. "You don't get to decide when this ends, Emily," he said coldly. "I gave you everything, and you threw it away for someone like Ryan. Now, you get to live with the consequences." Emily spent years trying to rebuild her life, but Michael's revenge had left deep scars. She lost friends, her career stalled, and she carried the weight of her betrayal like a chain around her neck. For Michael, the pain eventually faded, replaced by a quiet satisfaction that justice had been served. He moved on with his life, leaving Emily behind as a ghost of the woman she once was.